Welcome back to Vancouver. That's BC Place, host of the 2011 Vanier Cup Championship in Vancouver. This is CIS Countdown. Lots to get into in the second half of the program, including an interview with CIS football legend Chris Flynn, who was recognized over the weekend, and of course this week's top 10 rankings. A team that deserves a mention in those rankings is UBC. People in these parts, as we touched on last week, are taking notice to the great start to the 2011 season. Thunderbirds are knocking on first place door, and if it wasn't for a late touchdown drive by the Dinos in week 2, Thunderbirds would be in first place in the Canada West. They were 18 seconds away from going 2-0 and knocking off the three-time defending conference champions from Calgary, but Stephen Lambala led a run-heavy drive, and UBC dropped a 30-25 nail-biter at McMahon. But they're back on track with that win against Alberta over the weekend. It's been a feel-good story after 6 straight losing season, and it's a close relationship between a former and current UBC quarterback that's driving that turnaround out in Point Grey. It's no secret in the CIS that without a good coach and a good quarterback, you're simply not going to win. For the UBC Thunderbirds, it's all there in 2011 with Billy Green under center and former T-Birds quarterback turned head coach Sean Olsen. They're in search of the program's first winning season since 2004, and Green's going to be the man to lead them there. The Surrey, BC native's in his 4th season with UBC and is having a breakout season. He's already thrown for 867 yards and 8 touchdowns to lead his team to a 2-1 record early. Green credits a lot of his success to Olsen, who's in his 2nd year on the sidelines.
He's been huge. He's wanted me to use my athleticism a little bit more. In high school I used it a lot. My first 2 years here I didn't really get to utilize my strengths, and he's gotten me back to comfort level, running the ball, scrambling a little bit more, which has been huge for my game.
Scrambling's definitely a dangerous part of his game. Green's had a pair of 100-yard rushing games against Calgary and Alberta, totaling 245 yards on the ground this season. It's been all part of Olsen's plan to take pressure off his quarterback throwing the ball.
The big thing I think that Billy's doing this year that he hasn't done last year is probably he's doing a little less. He's not trying to do everything himself. He's trying to be a general out there and distribute the ball and put people in the right positions. And when he has to be athletic, he's able to be athletic. And that's one of the advantages of having a guy that is an athlete at the quarterback position.
Olsen's worked with Green specifically to develop that part of his game, but he also credits his quarterback's hard work in the offseason.
So much of it that gets looked at during the season, but really the offseason is where I think you make the impact as a quarterback, as a program, right? And I think by being available for his receivers and the DBs and being there consistently, I think that's probably where he's seen the biggest improvement, right? So I mean, that's people. You don't need to say a lot when you see that you're working hard and consistently there, and that leadership I think has, like sort of quiet leadership, has been set the tone I think for our team.
Green's longtime teammate Spencer Betts, who's been Green's receiver since their days at Holy Cross, has seen a big difference in his quarterback and best friend.
He's always made plays ever since high school, and he's a great athlete, but I think just maybe his decision making and coaches told him, and they've worked a lot on not having to make the big play every single time and just taking what the defense gives you. I mean, you can't make a big play every time, and just being patient, and when that time does come where we have a chance for a big play, he's been able to recognize that and make it happen.
While the Birds are flying high at 2-1 under General Green, Olsen says the jury is still out on his squad.
I'm not really sure just yet. I mean, I think we're not the most talented team in the country, but we're not the worst team in the country either, right? So anytime you're in that range, you got a chance, right? You got a chance to be successful, and you got a chance to do some good things. Time will tell, but the good group of kids working hard, doing the right things for the most part, and that usually leads itself to success.
One thing is for sure, UBC's finally got a quarterback-coach combo they've been missing over the past decade. The T-Birds haven't won a playoff game since 1999, but with Green under center and Olsen guiding the ship, they just may break that streak in 2011. The UBC Thunderbirds, of course, back in town this Saturday, the 2nd straight home game. They'll play Manitoba in what will be a key 2-1 battle this weekend at Thunderbird Stadium. They're back in the conversation nationally with that win over Alberta. We're now joined with Richard Zussman, who's the play-by-play voice of the Thunderbirds. Thanks for joining us here in studio, Richard. As you saw on the feature, great relationship between Sean Olsen and Billy Green, and they're obviously helping turn that program around. What's been the difference for the Thunderbirds early in the 2011 season?
Sean Olsen has taken over this team. It's just his second year as the head coach. He was a quarterback for the '97 team that won the Vanier Cup, and now he's got his mentality instilled in Billy Green. Billy's always been a very, very good quarterback, but he's really stepping into his own now. 250 yards passing. He only worked 3 quarters on the weekend as the UBC picked up a huge lead over Alberta, and then Coach Olsen went to his bench. And the running game has looked very, very good, especially last week. Dave Boyd was the guy. He ran for 174 yards. He scored a touchdown. And, you know, the relationship that offense is brewing between the receivers, the offensive line, Billy Green, and the running back has just been outstanding. And that's why that team's sitting at 2-1.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the multi-dimensional aspect of the Thunderbirds. You talked about Billy Green, of course, everybody knows, and the relationship as we talked about. But what about the running game? Dave Boyd had a great game, and he's getting back on track. How important is that for the Thunderbirds moving forward? We
joked about how UBC has 2 dimensions, the way Billy Green runs and the way Billy Green throws, but they've added some other elements. Dave Boyd, a great player, all-Canadian candidate, Canada West All-Star 2 years ago. This year he looks to be back on track, averaging over 80 yards a game through the first 3 games. But Billy Green, not only does he throw the ball, he runs the ball. All-purpose yards, over 370 all-purpose yards a game. I was chatting with the sports director over at UBC over the weekend. I was trying to get stats on all-purpose records, and they say the CIS doesn't keep them, but Billy Green must be getting close, the way that he can do it both with his arm and with his feet.
Yeah, it's been pretty amazing as far as his ability to rush the ball, 200-yard games, including last week. But I want to ask you about the defense. Underrated group, but only allowed 10 points against Regina in week 1, and really they only allowed 8 points against Alberta until the second stringers came in.
The guy that everybody knows about is Serge Kaminsky, 3 sacks the first game, an All-Canadian a couple times in the past, likely will be on that list again this year. But there are 3 defensive first-team starters for UBC. Adam Konar, a local guy, played his high school ball here. Last year had 9 interceptions in high school, was a high school All-BC selection, and he's been great for UBC, one of the top tacklers on the team. And the way that defense has stepped up as well in the secondary, Sam Carino, always been a good defender, but he continues to play very well, and quarterbacks aren't targeting his side because of the way he's slowing down receivers.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we saw in that feature, Sean Olsen not willing to make many bold predictions this season. The whole 1 game at a time cliche out of him. But really, 2 teams in the Canada West at 0-3, Regina and Alberta, and UBC is likely going to make the playoffs. In your mind, what do you think they can do this year?
This is a team that can win the Canada West. One thing that UBC fans are forgetting is that the 2 wins are against the 2 teams that are combined 0-6. But they played great against Calgary on the road, and it's in UBC's hands right now. They have Saskatchewan on the road. They host Calgary. They have Manitoba. And again, they travel to Edmonton. So it is all in UBC's hands. The way Billy Green's throwing the ball, there is no better quarterback in the country than him. So UBC, if they keep controlling their own destiny and play well on offense, they could run the table, or at least get in a position where they're a 2 or 3 seed in the Canada West, and then at that point they just have to win a couple playoff games, and they could be playing here at the Vanier Cup in Vancouver if everything goes right. But still, this is a team that, you know, expectations were low, and they can't get the expectations too high or things could really fall apart.
Still early in the season, obviously, to predict any Vanier Cups, but it should be a fun team to watch. Thanks very much for joining us, Richard. With UBC's big home win this weekend against the Golden Bears, it's a good opportunity to bring up this week's top 10 CIS rankings. The Thunderbirds are back in at number 9 after the home victory against Alberta. The team they face on Saturday, Manitoba, comes in the 10th spot after upsetting Saskatchewan at home. Meanwhile, the Huskies drop from 4th to 7th in the rankings. The top 3 teams this week remain unchanged as the 3-0 teams, Laval, Western, and Calgary, remain in the top 3. Big week in Canadian football. The Canadian Football Hall of Fame induction ceremony taking place Saturday night in Calgary. And one of those inductees, former St. Mary's star quarterback Chris Flynn, became the first CIS player to make the cut. Let's send it back to Calgary, where Jim Mullin's got that very star of this weekend.
Thank you very much, Chad. And now we are joined by Chris Flynn, the first CIS player to be inducted into the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. Chris, where were you when you got the call?
I was back at my place in Mayo, Quebec. I was working from home that day and got a call from the commissioner, actually, Mark Cohan, and I had heard rumors that my uncle might be getting inducted. So I thought he was calling me looking for my uncle's phone number, but he was calling to let me know that I was being inducted as well. So it was quite the shock, to tell you the truth. Like everyone else, I thought it was sort of like, you know, the CFL Hall of Fame, but it's the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. They wanted to, look at the college level as well as far as inducting someone, and they chose me this year, and it's I'm very honored and very humbled by the selection.
Ken Lehman is your uncle, and he was inducted in the veteran category. How long did it take for you guys to connect on the phone? It was
sort of like two new categories they did. One was for college player, and one was for a player maybe that they had looked over in the past. So we both, when they told Ken that I was inducted, he was shocked, and we were both kind of surprised, and we talked about it a week later. And Kenny, you know, he's a quiet guy, doesn't say too much about it, but I think we were both shocked, more so me. Kenny did have a great CFL career, but I was not really aware of the new category that they were looking at for a college player. So yeah, he lives his cottage is 5 minutes from mine, so we talked about it a little bit more again this summer. But you know, I'm from Buckingham, Quebec, a small town in Quebec where everyone plays hockey, and but he got my family into football in a big way and got me into football, so he's definitely a reason I'm here today too.
When you're playing, you don't play to get into a Hall of Fame. It's game by game. You're playing for a championship at the end of the season. But oddly enough, you're kind of a pioneer now, being the first CIS player into the Hall of Fame. Does it feel like that?
I guess so. And like you said, no player dreams of being in the Hall of Fame. Like you just dream of playing, and you're trying to win the next game and playing for that team. You don't think of down the road or the Hall of Fame, and it's sinking in more this weekend. There was a bit of hoopla back in February, but now and then it was quiet. Now it's really sinking in, especially tonight is going to be a big night, and to see I'm a big CFL fan. I was a Rough Rider fan in the 70s, so to see some of these guys that I met this week, like Peter Dallariva and even Danny McManus and Joe Montfort, those guys I watched, you know, it makes you feel like you're part of this team, and what a great team it is. So like I said, I'm very honored.
For people that did not have the opportunity to see you play, what was your style? A lot of people said that you were Doug Flutie in Canada before Doug Flutie even got to Canada.
Yeah, for sure. I guess Ken Newens mentioned that the other night, and I guess that's true. I remember watching Doug Flutie in 1990. He rolled right at the last second. He reversed field, went all the way the other way, and I said, holy geez, that's what I do. And I don't want to compare myself to Doug Flutie, but as far as style of play, for sure, that's how I was. I was absolutely not the kind of guy that would impress you that much in practice as far as how I play, but once I got in the games, that's how I was, or where I was able to show what I could do, and I was definitely a scrambler, and I was just the guy that tried to go out there and win, and that's the kind of guy I was. 3
Heck Creighton awards, but at the same time, the Vanier Cup was a bit of a cruel mistress, wasn't it?
Well, the only game I ever missed in my life was the '88 Vanier Cup. We played at Bishop's, Leroy blew in the Atlantic Bowl, had a great game, definitely got injured in the second quarter. I had blood in my eye, and I knew there was something wrong, but finished the game, practiced all week, and the Thursday I won my first Heck Creighton, they told me I couldn't play. Physically I was fine, but I definitely knew that I had definitely had bad headaches all week, so they wouldn't let me play in the game. We lost that game, and as I said, it's the only game I ever missed, and had a separated shoulder in 1990, but played against a great Saskatchewan team, and lost to them 24-21. So yeah, you have your disappointments, and also had some great memories. St. Mary's was not a strong team from 73 to 87, and I'd always played on strong teams in high school and CJEP, but decided to go out there, and proud that I was kind of able to turn that program around, and now St. Mary's is strong every year, and I'm proud of that fact too.
You had a couple of camps with the Ottawa Rough Riders. You also were with the Montreal Machine in the World League of American Football. You stayed committed to being the Canadian quarterback. If you had an opportunity to do that differently, would you do it differently?
I probably would have just like they wanted me. In fact, the 92, 93 training camps, Ottawa, Toronto, I did quarterback in the morning and receiver in the afternoon, and they're kind of moving me all over the place. If I could go back now, yeah, I would have played receiver or safety. That's what they wanted me to play. And I, as a kid, liked playing football. I didn't dream of being a quarterback. I just dreamed of playing football. So maybe I would have just played, you know, another position. At the time, I was really focused on quarterback for sure, and that's what I wanted to play. I even played in France for 4 years and enjoyed that, and did play with the Rough Riders in '96, their last few games before they folded on, played on all special teams, and I loved it, but then the team folded a week after the season was over. I was turning 30, I think, and said, okay, time to get a real job, I guess. So ended up, you know, deciding to call it quits with football.
Well, Chris, thank you very much for your time here. And I know there's a lot of us behind the scenes that worked very hard to make sure that a CIS player was inducted into the Canadian Football Hall of Fame, and we're elated that you are the first one. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. As I said, very humbling and honor, and very proud to be selected this year.
Chris Flynn, the first CIS inductee into the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. Now let's throw it back to Vancouver.
Thanks, Jim. A great player and definitely a well-deserved nod into the Hall. The late Gino Fracas also inducted into the Canadian Football Hall of Fame over the weekend in the Builders category. Fracas sadly passed away in 2009, but he leaves behind a great legacy for CIS football. He coached 24 seasons, including 19 with the Windsor Lancers, the program he actually founded back in 1968. It only took him 7 years before leading him to the Yates Cup in 1975. Fracas also won back-to-back OUA titles in the 50s as a running back at Western. Now to the games you can look forward to across the country. Out west, many will have their eyes on Calgary. First place Dinos playing host to Saskatchewan on Friday. Calgary's still perfect. Meanwhile, the Huskies looking to rebound, of course, from that loss in Manitoba. In Ontario, Tyler Varga watch continues as he tries to add to his 9-touchdown total at Laurier. Mustangs trying to go 4-0 against the Hawks. The score, however, will be showing McMaster and Guelph. And in Quebec, Montreal Bishops will be the marquee game of the week. Both teams going for their second straight win. For everybody at CIS Countdown, including Jim Mullin, who joined us from Calgary earlier, and Richard Zussman in studio, I'm Chad Klassen saying so long from Vancouver. We'll see you right back here in 7 days. Enjoy the game. CIS Countdown is brought to you by Canada Safeway. Canada Safeway is a proud sponsor of the 2011 Vanier Cup, November 25th in Vancouver.